We are taping this. We are going to put this same presentation up on our website today. This afternoon, we released a new webpage devoted to this proposed indoor activities project. And so an effort to provide the community with as much information as possible, we are taping this session tonight as well. So thank you all for coming. It's great. I look across the audience and I know every single one of you, so that's amazing. We see a lot of district staff here. We've got 3 board members here. We've got Linn-Mar staff here. We've got coaches. I've got folks that were serving on the facilities stakeholder committee. So thank you for attending. Let's just do a quick raise of hands. So if you're working in the district office, John, Nathan, me, Renee in the back, Angela. And we have 3 board members, Midhat Mansour, Justin Foss, and Melissa Walker. Thank you for attending tonight. Former board member, Clark Weaver. And then if you served on the stakeholders committee, would you raise your hand? We got Nick Glue and Doug Stryker and Chris Fechner, Kyle Rodenkirk, Jeff Gustafson, and Tanya Moe. We've got Vicki from OPN. We've got 2 of our fabulous wrestling coaches with Bo Westfall and Ryan Gatto here. Did I miss anybody? All right, so thank you all for attending tonight. We are excited to talk to all of you. Some of you have seen this presentation already, but as the board heard about a series of projects in April of 2022, one of the last projects that was shared with the board that evening was this concept of an indoor activities center. So as we've been working through those high school projects, and as you recall, we've had a facility stakeholder group that's worked over many, many years now, and they consider the needs of the district, prioritize the needs, and then set forth a series of projects. And those funding opportunities come through in different ways, whether that's PEPL or SAVE or going out for a GEO bond. So as this one of the later stakeholder groups was working, we had just gotten through the vote where voters voted in the ability for us to build Hazel Point and Boulder Peak. So the next stakeholder group, or continuation of that group, turned their attention to the high school campus. And therein you see all these projects that we've been involved in lately, whether that's been our high school parking lot to the northwest corner, the tennis courts that are now moved out to Oak Ridge, the updating of the LRC building so that the high school kiddos and staff could fully use that building. The new building that we've recently adopted the term Educational Leadership Center. I'm still getting used to that. And as we move into this last project then, the board really asked us as district administration to just take a deeper look, bring a stakeholder group together. We know that this concept of an indoor activities center with a box that had 3 courts on it, maybe a walking track around it, was what they saw as they heard one of their last board reports. And so we did that, and without getting too far into the presentation, John's like, are you gonna let me talk? I'm gonna turn it over. So we're gonna have some fun tonight. We're gonna do a presentation, we're gonna do about half of it, and then we're gonna pause, and we're gonna take a tour of the facilities. So you can see some of the things that the stakeholders and staff were pointing out to us as needs to consider. And John will take you through that, and then we'll come back here, and actually Tanya's gonna help tour, and Jeff, and then we'll come back here and we'll kind of unveil what that design concept looks like, and then take any questions. So without further ado, John Galbraith, our CFO, COO.
Thank you, Amy. So just a little bit of an agenda here, where we've been, what our concept development was originally, what our new schematic design is, and then what our potential schedule and funding mechanisms would be for this project. So this dates back to the facility planning that really started with the $80 million bond that had then failed. Some of these projects were in conversations at that time, and they didn't make the cut per se. So that bond failed. $55 million was the next bond to come up. That built our 2 intermediate schools that kind of cut out everything else. Again, some of these projects made the list at that time, but just didn't make the cut for the funding. So fast forward now, intermediates are open, reconvene the facility committee, and the board came up with a list of projects that was in this rendition of our facility plan. So Amy's kind of touched on these a little bit. So the high school extension administration building, so new admin building, renovated the old LRC that's now the AEC. The tennis courts, performance venue that's under construction. A couple different parking lots. The parking lot to the north, or the west, north end of the existing parking lot to the west of the stadium, and then there would be a part of a parking lot added for this project. And then lastly, indoor activity center, so that's why all of us are here. So really what that looks like graphically there for a timeline, parking was added so that we could put the new tennis courts in. Admin building was built so we could do the renovation to the AEC. And the new auditorium's under construction and here in design phase of the indoor activity center. So the indoor activity center, what was kind of the project that was approved or the initial concept of what this indoor activity center would look like? So really it was 3 basketball courts in size, 3-lane walking track, we need some storage, we need some restrooms. Pretty basic. The areas that were identified for this were, does it replace the AEC? Does it go where that new parking lot is now? Or where does it fit so that it could be attached to the high school? Really looking at how landlocked we are here, there was really only one spot, east of the wrestling room, north of the gym. There's the big hill up there, there's a cell tower. That was kind of the space that was identified of, we think this is really what works and fits our needs. So this is really showing kind of what that looks like. That was really all the bigger that addition could be because of the constraints we have, keeping the drive around, the hillside, the existing building, a bunch of utilities. So we kind of made that work to say, here's the best we can do. So what's changed from that initially approved project to where we are now? Well, a little bit of clarity. I think there's some members in this crowd right now and others that had kind of said, hey, I know we're doing this indoor activity, but what about all of these other needs that have come up? And we kept getting conversations around that within our stakeholder meetings, and then just from outside groups via emails, phone calls, things like, what else is out there? This is nice, but there's other needs here at the high school. Does it make sense to address this now or what? So the other couple things that came up is a storm shelter requirement. So as part of the performance venue, there's 2 storm shelters there that will hold the capacity of that performance venue, 1,200 roughly people. The city has told us, hey, the next time you do any major work at the high school, you're going to have to provide a storm shelter that will hold the remaining capacity of your high school, roughly another 1,200 to 1,400 people. So I was like, okay, we weren't planning that at the time for that indoor activity center. How are we going to do that? So that was a big change. Really, we said there's consensus that this needs to be attached to the high school so that it's not a standalone facility, so it can be used during the day and use some of the other amenities we have at the high school at the same time. Also, girls wrestling was sanctioned post the initial project. So real quickly it became, we don't have enough space to have girls wrestling and boys wrestling at the same time, and all of the club practices that support our younger students within the district in the wrestling program. We need more wrestling room space. So those are really 3-4 of the large things that have kind of changed that as we gave that feedback to the board said, let's take a pause here and put together a committee to really identify everything that's needed as it relates to an indoor activity center and athletics at the high school. What are all of the needs to accomplish the goals we're trying to achieve? So we had that stakeholder group. Members of that group are out here. We had a couple meetings last February and March. We toured the space to see what do we have now, and then we just did a lot of thinking around what are the other needs that are out here. As you can see, those are some of the top things. Needs to be multi-use, weight room, track, locker rooms, the location. Really identified a lot of different aspects, and we had a lot of different viewpoints there of what was important to them individually, and then put them in small groups to kind of figure that out on what were the things that we needed in this project. We also went on some benchmarking trips. So we visited Mason City's Activity Center, the Clear Lake Wellness Center, the Wartburg Waverly Sports and Wellness Center, and the Cedar Valley Sportsplex. I think all of us kind of had some ideas, but I also think a lot of us are kind of visual learners and actually seeing what could be or what existing spaces are in other places, what those were to say, yeah, this is what we want. And I think that really helped our design team kind of understand what our needs were if they could see that as well. We also looked at virtually Waukee Northwest and Indianola, what their indoor activity center spaces were as well. So with that, we would like to go on a little tour through some of our existing spaces here. I don't know if it's Tanya and Chris and Jeff or one group, how we're going to divide and conquer this, but we're going to go and look at our weight room and our wrestling room areas here, and then we'll come back. Next here we got a little video kind of about some of the staff members from the high school here that use these facilities every day to kind of understand what their take is on them.
You know, we're the largest 5A school here on the eastern side of the state. And so when you compare to a lot of the other 5A schools, when you look at their facilities compared to ours, we're definitely behind the ball on a lot of those things.
During the course of our winter, spring, summer, and fall seasons, we have 17 to 20 teams that are vying for space in our weight room, whether they are in season at that time or out of season, but still are looking for weight room time to come in. And we just don't have the space available for the number of kids on those teams.
During track, when it's obviously cold, snowy, rainy outside, it gets very difficult. And when we're inside, it's very hard between the Ox Gym and even the main gym, sharing that space, sharing the hallways if need to be with, 200 plus athletes in here. For track athletes, well, the indoor facility will give us a track to actually be on instead of the hallways or hardwood floor and things of that sort, and allow us to be able to use spikes if we need to. It just will be just better for the body overall.
Well, obviously the growth is girls wrestling, expanding. The boys wrestling team has been pretty strong the last 10, 15 years, numbers-wise and competition-wise. So we had the numbers there to when we got this facility updated like 8 years ago. That was long overdue, and now girls wrestling comes on the scene pretty quickly, and now they're exploding. So it's just a matter of, again, square footage, having places for the kids to practice. So we're not practicing at 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning, 6 at night. So this is the only wrestling room in the whole district. We don't have wrestling rooms in the middle school or the intermediates or anyplace else. This is it. One wrestling room in a district this size is just doesn't work.
The day before we have our regional match, there's a huge band concert and they do that in the main gym, and so we don't have a place to practice here, so we have to sometimes practice early in the morning. But I have, like, at varsity level, we have a lot of kids that are taking Kirkwood classes and they can't practice in the morning because they have to be out at Kirkwood. So we have to try to find other gym space around the district or not practice that day.
I look at it from a standpoint is I think it's going to impact everybody in some way, shape, or form. There's that opportunity for a possible intramurals, right? On a morning where it may be raining and band needs to have somewhere to do some of their marching, that would be open. We would be able to offer more of those opportunities for those students that might not be out for a sport, but are looking for somewhere to come in and work out and things like that.
I think a new facility brings a little bit of equity to a lot of our kids. We could offer clinics to kids who just want to try it out and they want to do things, and they maybe can't afford to go pay high dollars to do other stuff, but we would have space and availability to be able to, close that equity gap with our students that can't afford to go pay and do a lot of other things.
It would impact every single buddy in this school, from kids that are here in the morning that want to be part of an intramural team. We could do an intramural league with more space. The PE and fitness classes obviously would benefit from it. Every single one of our athletic teams would benefit from it.
When I came in here as an outsider looking in, the facilities that are here were what was a big draw for me and my wife when we came here with our daughter. The opportunities that Linn-Mar offered, the facilities that Linn-Mar offered. We've got a great aquatic center that we host multiple events at. Our football stadium is state of the art. The opportunities and the offerings that we can offer to those student athletes and our students in general, just to provide them more space.
All right, so that kind of takes us to the schematic design. So this would be now looking forward on what the possibilities are, what might be from the feedback that we got from the stakeholder group on what all needed to be included in this comprehensive project. So these were some of the initial designs on OPM's kind of first draft and second renditions as we went through things and got feedback, how things laid out, how it worked. So you can see there was a variety of different solutions that we refined and then got feedback and refined again, and then more feedback and refined again. So really the elements are the resting rooms, the courts, multi-use. I think multi-use was maybe one of the highest things, is how can we get a facility that can be used by all sports, all activities, and not just zoned in on maybe one small group. Locker rooms and team rooms need updated, and then the weight room. So here's the schematic design that we landed on, and I'll walk through this just a little bit. So we can see up to the north here, that would be our storm shelter, and then also the ability to add 4 wrestling mats. Because it is our storm shelter, we also have to have restroom facilities in that. That's part of that code. So you see kind of the orange area on the right there, that's a couple team rooms. If we move to the left past the existing 3-mat wrestling room, that is the existing locker room area. And that's really just being renovated to be 7 smaller type locker rooms to give the flexibility to meet the needs of what we need for PE, what we need for our teams, depending on what season it is. And then when we're hosting games, having the ability to be able to put those teams in their individual locker room without having to walk through the same locker room space that we may have somebody else in. Area D down there, the big green square, that's the existing auxiliary gym. That would turn into our turf area. We'd have batting cages. Could be used by football, softball, baseball, soccer, golf. You name it there. And then the existing locker rooms there, we would renovate that into a team room space, so a space to watch film or have meetings, not necessarily locker rooms, but more of a meeting type space with a projector. From there, if we go back to the existing gymnasium, just to the south of that, the red area, that would be the new weight room. Part of that would be a kind of a 2-level weight room, so we have some weights on the weights or cardio equipment on the same level as the indoor activity center. And then obviously there, area B with the track, 3 basketball courts, and then a 200-meter indoor track. So we would have the ability to host an indoor meet if we wanted to. I think that was kind of one area as we were going through the iterations. It's like, yeah, we need a track area. We don't need to be able to hold competition. So, 3 lanes, if it's not 200 meters, that's fine. And then I think a lot of us came to the realization, like, we're going to build a facility that's almost there to hold a 200-meter track. Like, if we don't do this in this rendition of it, Linn-Mar will never have an indoor track. So it was like kind of one of those aha moments that if we're going this far, go the whole way so we have the ability to host an indoor meet if we would like to. I think I'm going to pause there for any questions, because I know some of you, this is the first time you've seen this, and I've done it 100 times, so I know it in and out, and I probably glazed over something. Any questions? Or Jeff, Tanya, Chris, any of the committee members, if you guys have kind of anything to add, I can hand the mic off as well.
With a schematic design, you can still say, well, there's room on the ends. You could still outline courts. You could put more types of places on that. If that's what people wanted to do during the design phase, those things can still happen. So it's not just defining the space that's the only thing it can be. Once the design phase happens, you can, again, use it for whatever you want it to be.
Also, those aren't just basketball courts. There are also volleyball courts in there as well. So I just want people to know it's not just like focused on one sport. But also what's really important about, we would be the only high school that would be able to host an indoor track meet. They aren't hosted at high schools right now. They're hosted at colleges. And so it puts pressure on the colleges to kind of give their space to high schools, and they have to figure out what they're going to do with their own teams. So that would be attractive to, I know, both athletic associations, that we would have a high school in the state get to host those. Also, there would be a lot of curtains that we could draw down in there, so we could have a track team working on the track. We could have 3 different teams working on the courts, and they all could be divided by curtains without hindering each other. right now we have that issue in our current space. So a lot of capability with that space.
All right, so here's kind of some renderings of how this lays out on the existing site. So the kind of the large box here in the middle, this is looking at the area from the east side. So that large box in the middle is our existing gym. So to the left of that would be the indoor activities center. That would be the addition. And then to the right of that is the wrestling storm shelter addition, this area over here. This would be looking at the from the south, so kind of where the existing tennis courts are here, looking up. That's a profile of the addition. This would be standing on the west, so maybe just south of the new performance center and looking back to the east. That would be the outside of the performance center there. At night, one reminder as I look at this, because I think this is a pretty cool image. Remember, right now, these aren't necessarily design solutions. These are options. So don't snap a photo of this, and then when this gets built that it looks different. That's possible, but these are just solutions to have an idea of what this does, what this potentially could look like. This would be walking up to the entrance. And this is just as you get inside the entrance. So kind of the lion head in the background, that would be the new activities office. Just to the right, kind of where you see some people standing there, that would be overlooking the indoor activities center. And then back behind kind of the LM, that would be our entrance into our gymnasium. This would be a hallway that's behind the bleacher seating in the indoor activities area, kind of windows looking outside, and then on the left, that would be an area, could be trophy cases, display cases, to kind of gather all of the accolades the students have won that are scattered throughout the building in a lot of areas that the public doesn't get to see. This would give us the ability to be able to display that for everybody to see in one location. All right, so this is looking at the inside of the activity center. Right now, you're on the south of it, looking north. Where you're standing now would be floor level to where Renee and Riley are, kind of our existing floor level here. So you can see court level and track level in that space is depressed. As we look outside compared to where we are here to how that grade changes to the south, there's quite the grade difference there. So the gym floor level of our existing gym floor is much higher than what it will be here. So we'll kind of have a nice area up there to be able to look out over this space. And one thing that I think is, or a couple things here, but one really unique thing to this facility that I don't think we saw anywhere else is you can notice there we do have bleacher seating. So when we are hosting events in this area, we have the ability to have a crowd that aren't on movable bleachers on the floor level. You know, so if we're having a little kids wrestling tournament, there's some space up there. You know, even if it's just practices, no matter what level it is, and you have some parents that are in there for an open gym, you still have the ability to have some separation so our coaches and players can do their things on the court or on the track, but you still have ability for parents to kind of oversee that, but not be, you know, in the huddle per se. Jeff, did you have anything to add on the bleachers while we're on this page?
I was just going to say, if anybody's ever been to any kind of activity where there's a large number of people, if you don't have seating, it is great that the activity can happen, but it's miserable experience for people that are watching. And so that's one thing that when they built the aquatic center, it was consciously made to make sure that the seating piece was there so people could enjoy the experience. And I think that's the same concept that's being used here is we don't just want people to feel miserable while they're here. We want them to actually be able to enjoy it.
Thanks, Jeff. A couple other things to note. If you see the kind of the red wall with the glass in there, that would be looking into the weight room. So from the weight room, you would be able to look out into our indoor activity space. This is at the end of the bleacher seating, looking out over to the track and the courts. And this would be coming, this is looking towards the south, so this is kind of when you walk into the doors, this is what you would first walk into the indoor activity center. So there's a little bit of standing room there that would open up to kind of what I like to call the pre-function space, the space you can gather outside of your competition areas. Tanya mentioned this a little bit, but kind of the black hanging from the ceiling in the middles, that would be the dividers that would allow us to split that up so we could have more than one group in there at one time using the space.
There will be a large garage door on the east side of that facility, which is important because we can haul in bleachers, we can haul in mats, we can haul in a high jump pit, we can haul in whatever we need to. So I think that's really important. A lot of areas that we visited, that's the one thing they said, make sure you have a big enough garage door. So we're going to make sure that that happens.
All right. Now lastly here, the cost. So Area A, remember that's the storm shelter wrestling room in the red box up top. So this isn't total project cost. So sometimes we talk construction cost, and other times we talk total project cost. So total project cost includes the cost of construction, design fees, fixtures, furniture, and equipment. We have some city fees for permits, kind of overall what it costs to have the project done and equipped so it's ready for use. So that dollar figure is higher than just construction cost, but it's all inclusive of what we need to be able to use this space when the project's done. Remember that this area was one of the adds from what our original scope was because girls wrestling wasn't sanctioned at the time. So this became an additional need after the first facilities plan. Area B, that is our locker room area, green square, about $5.3 million. Again, that was one thing identified by our stakeholder group of the locker rooms we have not been updated. They don't function well during games. We need more of them. While we're in this area, is this something that we look at? Area C, so that's kind of the weight room, kind of the attachment of the indoor activity center to the current building. Roughly $4 million for that. Area D in the orange, that's the renovation of the auxiliary gym and the team room spaces, about $400,000 there. And then the main addition, $36 million. So kind of as we look at this of where did we start, we started with 3 basketball courts, 3 lanes, some restrooms, and a storage area. So if we look at that blue square there, we have 3 basketball courts and many more lanes. So for argument's sake, we started with 3 basketball courts at a price tag of about $20 million for that. Now we're up to $36 million with more space, with bleachers, with some team rooms in that area. The other 4 line items there were things that were identified by our stakeholder group of things that also needed to be done. So we did jump from the $20 million up to a total cost of $53.4 million. So how do we fund this is the next question, right? Like, great, 53 million, John, how do we afford that? How can we fund this? So we have a couple options that we've placed in front of the board. Matt Gillespie from Piper Sandler, he helps us with all of our capital improvement funds and gives us these options on borrowing or how do we do this. So right now we have 2 options. We could fully fund this out of SAVE, which is our sales tax, revenues generated, 1 cent penny tax, generated throughout the states, allocated per pupil to districts. The other option is we could partly pay for it out of SAVE, and then we could partly pay for it out of PEPL. So there's pros and cons to both of those approaches, but both of those would be able to fund this $53.4 million. And the board has that information, and as we go through, they'll have a decision to make kind of on which direction they would like to go there. Any questions? Thank you. Yes. 1 second, Clark. So Vicki reminded me of this. So as we look at this, it's not like, well, we don't need the indoor activity center, but we want to do the weight room and the locker rooms and the wrestling rooms. This is all costed right now as if this was one project being done at the same time. So if we do go in here and do some a la carte things, these prices aren't 100% accurate. They're probably close, but there will be some changes involved and probably some increases there to be able to do them separately. So I just want that out there kind of as a disclaimer so everybody understands that this is priced as one full project. Go ahead, Clark.
Just a question. Do we still, as a district, allow people to rent the space to come in for like AAU basketball games, like maybe 5th and 6th grade, 3rd and 4th? Do we still do that?
Yep, so the question was, do we allow the public to come in and rent our spaces? And we do, yep, we have a facility scheduler and there's requests put in for that across our district as a whole, yes. Any other questions? Yep, correct. So question was, is there locker rooms off of the field house area? And there is. There's 3 locker rooms that are located underneath of the bleacher areas.
John, has there been any more progress or discussions with the city on any interest for them to partner with us on this, knowing that this would be bringing in, if we're the only indoor track in the state, this would potentially bring in a lot of opportunities for additional revenue for people going out to eat and people staying overnight and things like that. And so I think that this would be something that would be of potential great interest to the city to have in the community.
Yep. So the question was, have we spoke with the city about potentially partnering with them on this project because of the economic impact that this could potentially have to kind of the greater Cedar Rapids, Marion area? I would say no, we haven't had those conversations specifically. Seth, their Parks and Rec director, was on our subcommittee, so he's well aware. We did get a nice email with them, but we haven't had those specific conversations with them.
Although we did have, I can't remember how many months ago, we did have some conversation with Ryan Waller and team on a concept that they've been floating. I'm not sure that that's something they're interested in doing right away, but their concept is much different than the one that we're proposing here. So after we had a couple meetings, we kind of parted ways on that thought, but certainly as this comes more to fruition, we would want to share with them, where we're headed.
Any other questions? All right, next step. So this is our first of 3 Lion learning sessions. The next 2 will be, I'm not going to say identical because I won't repeat word for word, but very, very similar to what this one is. We have one after spring break on March 25th, and then another one on April 8th. Really from there, it's kind of back to the board to have them make a decision on, yeah, let's move forward. What are our next steps or anything like that. So I'm terming that a board endorsement of, yep, we're supporting this, move forward. If that does happen, then from there, the design development through our construction documents to be able to put this out to bid and get a contractor on board would be about an 11-month process. And then construction for all of this would be about a 16-month process. So I really wanted to put that on there to show that from when we decide, yes, we're moving forward, it's about a 2.5-year process until the project is complete. There'll be phases to that, obviously, that we'll figure out as we get in there, but it's not an overnight thing that this thing won't be open next summer. We're about 2.5 years from the potential opening of this at a minimum. All right, I know we just kind of had a little Q&A. If there's more questions, please feel free to ask. If you're anything like me, you'll get 2 minutes down the road and go, shoot, what about this? If you scan this QR code, lead you to a Google form that you can leave feedback for us. Good, bad, ugly. We want to hear from anybody and everybody on what their thoughts are. So don't be shy. Tell us where we did well. Tell us where we're missing the ball, and it just makes it better for everybody involved. Yep. So Renee and Riley, our communications department, they did a great job putting that video together for one. So thank you guys. That was awesome. And then number 2, within our Linn-Mar webpage, we have an entire page dedicated to this project that has a Q&A and some other information. So please go visit that. And then there's also the feedback form on there as well. Anything else from anybody else in the group? All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you guys taking your time this evening to come out.